So now, I'm very happy and honored to welcome Phil Komarny, Vice President Innovation at Salesforce, that's going to talk you a little about blockchain and a lot about him.
Okay, so I have about 70 slides and less than a half an hour, so we're going to go really fast. But I'm Phil Komarny. I'm the Vice President of Innovation at Salesforce, and Jean-Michel wanted me not to do any kind of marketing talk. I'm not a marketing person. I really have, everything I'm going to talk about today, I've actually done a lot of this work when I was at the University of Texas System. Thank you very much. So first off, forward-looking statement, I'm going to talk about blockchain. So it has not been GA'd yet, so we want to just make sure we have this forward-looking statement up here, make investments on things we have in the market right now. And first off, thank you, everybody who I met at dinner last night. I've been here for literally about 24 hours. I'm going to leave tomorrow. I'm going to be super jet-lagged, but this has been an amazing just day yesterday. Paris is such a beautiful place. So some of you see some of your faces up there, but really thank you for everything and all the hospitality. But I wanted to frame this talk really quick around this statement that I think Einstein made this, but it's a really great slide. So we have to fix these problems with like a different way to kind of correct the problems that we created in one way. So with blockchain, I think we're going to have a whole different way to think about data, and this quote really speaks to me. So at the end of it, I think you'll be able to reflect on that and get a bit out of it. Again, my name's Phil. I've been in the education space for about 25 years before I came to Salesforce. My last position was the Chief Digital Officer at the University of Texas System in the US. It's about 250,000 students and 100,000 faculty and staff, and we were using Salesforce at the core of that system to re-envision how the business could run. And the blockchain was underneath of all of that idea. So I'm going to go through and talk about that. But Jean-Michel and me talk about why I'm so passionate about blockchain and about me. And this is partly part of the reason. There's a website called the Opportunity Atlas. It's a 40-year research study that Harvard did about how do you predict somebody's future in the United States. And you'd think it'd be about nature, nurture, things like that. The most predictive thing in our country about your future is your zip code. It's really disgusting when you see that. So I think that this is really speaking to me as like we have to be able to deliver opportunity to people that don't have it. And when you look at this study and you look at the data in here, there's really no way to do it in analog world. We have to do it digitally. So I really think that the blockchain could extend opportunity because we can really get it into places where we don't have a physical location. So data can be trusted, and that's why I think we can start solving it that way. So here's my personal slide. That's my mom and me, and why I'm in this innovation role, I think, is that reason. She always made me color outside the lines, always. It was just gave me the ability to do that, and this is the way I always thought about school. I didn't get to go to higher education or go to college in the States, but I always saw university this way, where I'd like to be inspired by master works, but I want to explore my own path and be able to see this curiosity in people. And I think that's our educational system takes that out of people, and I think we can really reinstate that with some of this technology. But started my story and why I think blockchain is going to do so much for the education space. This is my former boss. He was the chancellor at the University of Texas System. His name is Bill McRaven. He's the gentleman who this movie was about, Zero Dark 30. Anybody ever seen that movie? No? It's about the Bin Laden raid. He's the gentleman that ran our special operations in the United States for a long time. He was what they call the bullfrog, or the head Navy SEAL for about 20 years. This guy's an amazing American leader. But he was our chancellor, and I thought, if we're going to change education, it's going to be with somebody like that in command. I mean, really, that has a meritocracy background, that really understands how you can really motivate people. And he did a really great speech called Make Your Bed. If anybody's seen that, it's a commencement speech from the University of Texas System. There's people from Austin here. I used to live there, so it's a great place, great speech, great book. But what he did, when I left my post with him, he handed me this coin. I forgot it. It's in my bag. I was going to let people pass it around today. I'll bring it to afterwards. But that's a challenge coin. Anybody seen challenge coin history is in World War I, World War II, this is the way they used to identify people on a battlefield. Well, it was really stressful to be able to trust that that is actually somebody from my regiment or from my group. So when I left, he gave me this coin, and I was really I carry it with me today. That's how impressive it was to me. But it embodies trust. So it's a physical representation of a trusted relationship between two people. And it's easy to counterfeit. This is simple. You could strike another coin and somebody could imitate that, but this is the way that I think we're going to see badging and blockchain can do this in the digital world, and I'll show you how. But first, let's go back. First, just a little bit about blockchain. 2008, this blockchain came out, this big new type of technology around this paper around Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system that solved the thing called the double spend. So two people, I'd be able to spend money once, not twice, and a way to do it without a bank. It's completely anonymous. Nobody knows who did the algorithm or put it into the world, but that was the first time that it was seen, and it's done some really interesting things. But it did this. It allowed a transaction, a trusted transaction to happen between two totally anonymous people. So you have these two anonymous people that want to transfer some funds. They use the blockchain instead of a bank. That's really as simple as it gets, but it's very inefficient. And it's not, I think it caused this, what I'm going to call crypto confusion, because when that happened, this happened. So if you look at this date at the bottom, watch this scale. This is what you call exponential growth, and you usually don't see this very often. But right around 2017, probably around March area, here it's come, it's just going to explode. So all of these token economies got created because everybody thought, wow, Bitcoin and this cryptocurrency is really what we need. We need to be able to do this in a public way that everybody is anonymous, and this is what turned out. There's a couple things up there that I actually use. Telegram's a system that I use, a little chat system, but all that other stuff, $23 billion worth of investment, where'd it go? What's that for? There's a lot of things up there that's really interesting, but it's not what I call crypto confusion, because we're in there talking to C-suites about this, and it's really confusing because everybody thinks we need a token. We need some type of token economy to do this. And actually, you can use it this way. So digitizing trust between two trusted parties. So if we have two universities, Arizona State, and this is Dallas Community College District, that transfer students all the time. So they already trust each other. Let's codify that trust in this code, in this blockchain. So we give them a new way to have governance models, new ways to share data, new ways to use it. So they're able to take student records and move them across that system in a consented way. So the student can say, yes, you can use my data. And it can be on that data, on that blockchain, persistent across that whole network where it's very secure. So it's a bit different. So that's a different way to apply blockchain, not in a public way where two untrusted or two anonymous people can have a trusted transaction, but let's take trust and codify it into the blockchain. So this is our little video. It's the only marketing thing you're going to see today.
What if you could create a new business model for collaborating more efficiently with all your partners? Today, companies have walls around every source of data, so it's costly and complex to share information. But with Salesforce Blockchain, you can create a secure network for quickly and reliably sharing data. A blockchain is a new kind of database. It's secure and tamper-proof. And instead of being centrally managed, it's distributed among multiple parties. Each party has their own copy of the database, and the data is traceable for easy auditing. When everyone has visibility into the same data, it builds trust in the network, and this helps companies come together to deliver better customer experiences. Like a high-end clothing company with a complex supply chain. Their customers want assurances about ethical sourcing and product authenticity. And with Salesforce Blockchain, the company can create a trust network for their entire supply chain, adding every cotton grower and fabric factory. The blockchain gives them visibility into each step along the way, so it's quicker and easier to trace a product back to its source, confirm ethical labor practices, and elevate customer trust. A university can use Salesforce Blockchain to create a lifelong learner profile for each student that's shared across a network of schools. As the student progresses, her transcripts and degrees are published to the network in real time, making it simple to transfer colleges. And after graduating, she can easily show her learner profile to a potential employer, confirming her entire education history. Building a blockchain usually requires lots of code, but with Salesforce Blockchain, you can do it with clicks. Just start by defining the rules for your trust network. Then pick the data you want to share. Invite your partners, setting permissions for who can see and do what on the network. And they can all connect using Salesforce or any app of their choice. You can even set it up to send notifications, automate actions, and trigger workflows, helping you break boundaries to collaborate in new ways and keep your customers at the center of your business. Visit Trailhead to get started and see how to create your network of trust with Salesforce Blockchain. Blaze your trail with Salesforce.
So different aspect, different way to apply the technology. I really like that video and how it talks about it. But this is what I see when we walk into a meeting and hear about somebody saying, hey, we want to use blockchain. Usually it's a no. It's usually, well, that's not really what we're going to use that for, because it's everybody thinking that they need these token economies. But if you have these things where multiple parties are involved and they need complete visibility into some type of data set that they're currently sharing, and maybe via API or maybe by paper, for God's sakes, or in Excel, we have a way to be able to have a different method to share that. And usually it's all around this, we see so much friction. So that idea that I showed you, talked about when we were at the University of Texas system, trying to get all of those 200,000 students on a blockchain where they had their profile that could go across those 14 schools without friction, that was $132 million worth of friction per year when you took out all the HR costs and all the technology costs of that actual workflow. So these things are super inefficient, and you can get into these really different ways to work when you do that. And we're all connected today. So this is going to give us a different way, a really easy way to connect data when we have smart cities, smart traffic, and smart trade, and 10 devices per human by 2025. This is, the amount of data we're seeing is actually amazing. So right now, everything's siloed, and this is how the world is today. We have everybody contains their data, holds it dear, but really wants to share it to be able to do regulation, regulatory reasons. But there's ways that we can use the blockchain to connect this way and create new sharing models. And this is the approach that we're taking. But we're taking the best of what we've seen in the Bitcoin space, this distributed, verifiable, and secure way to share data, and build it into this trust layer that we can extend to on Salesforce's platform. But again, the network of the data is distributed. It's not in one store. It's in everybody's store on this blockchain. So we'll talk. I'll show you that when we get to the end, when we go through a demo of the ASU stuff. But the network proves and validates every entry. There's a consensus method that everybody on the network agrees that that data is valid and true. So it's very secure too. It's cryptographically signed. The blockchain has never been hacked to date. There's been some wallets and things like that hacked, but nobody's really hacked that algorithm yet. The biggest problem we're seeing though is that top right number. Everybody who wants to use this, they think it's amazing, want to get into these really great relationships in their industries, but who's going to do the work? I mean, it's barely enough people in our ecosystem. Now we're going to add this blockchain that's so much more complexity. Who's going to be able to maintain them? So I think the big skills gap is a huge obstacle. So we've really made it so easy with what we do at Salesforce is make it clicks, not code. So the work I did at UT took 18 months to be able to work that blockchain the way we did it. It took us 8 weeks at Salesforce once we did this with our team at ASU. So we had a really great partner at Arizona State with really great talent in our team at Salesforce. And in 8 weeks, we were able to produce this, and we released it at Trailhead DX and showed an example of how we could do that. But along the top, along the green, like create a trust network, pick your data, integrate and automate, and then engage partners. What we're seeing right now are these partner networks are coming together in different industries, supply chain, hospitality, education, where they're saying, if we share data, we can take a ton of friction out of our business. And why are we not sharing this data in this way? So it's really interesting when you think about this 4 touch points, but engaging partners is where I think it should start. So it's not one company that's going to say, we're going to use the blockchain for this. It's mostly, how can I look at my industry and how can I take the friction out of it? And you're starting to look for leaders that want to take that lead and bring these consortia together. So I think that's where it's really going to be seen usefulness first. But it's just an extension of our platform. And if anybody wants to geek out, it's Hyperledger Sawtooth under the covers, so it's open source. You can go to the Hyperledger Foundation and actually look at the blockchain that we're using. We've customized it a bit, but it's just to make it easier to use on our platform. But it's literally just integrated into it, just like we did Einstein. This is just another way to extend our platform into this new technology. The most important thing is this, right here, okay? I think this is super important. Because we're not just saying you have to be a Salesforce customer to use our blockchain. We're going to have open APIs that can speak to this thing. So I think this shared data is really important to a point where you don't even have to be a platform customer to use this or access this shared data record. So this is something I think this API for any apps is important, especially in the blockchain space, because I don't think everybody's going to be a Salesforce customer when we do this with certain industries. But here's a I have exactly 9 minutes. I'm going to hurry up. This is an example of the Arizona State work that we released at Trailhead DX. That's Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State. You'll see unbelievably funny memes on Reddit about him. He says innovation like 10,000 times in 5 minutes because he just does speech after speech about innovation. The guy's a genius in this space. But how can we connect it and take all these different record sets and be able to have Arizona State see that in a different way? And what we did, we created these lifelong learner record profiles on Salesforce, and then we were able to share it between two systems. I'm just going to show you some of the use cases that we thought about when we were working with ASU with this technology. Was there was about 15, but these were the most interesting ones. We only produced that top one, reverse transfer, and what that does is, here's Arizona State, here's the community college. Somebody drops out of the community college and goes to Arizona State to finish their degree in the States. So 2 years of the community college, they're going to go finish it at Arizona State. They leave, go to Arizona State, and life happens. So they take a class, and they have to drop out, and they can't finish their degree. But that one class actually issued them an associate's degree back at the community college. So here's what happens in the States. When that happens, the community college gets funded if they can stamp that degree. But the problem was they were never able to see that data because it was still resident over here at Arizona State because they took one class. But what we were able to do with the blockchain is that student could say, share my data back to my community college. The student consented to the use of the data. That's a huge important thing. Move the data back, they get a stamp, they get an associate's degree. It's important in the world. It gives them a credential that lets them get a job. The university's funded how they should be, and Arizona State has a relationship with a student they probably would have lost before. So we're seeing a better way to do this. But this is what it kind of looked like architecturally. It's a very high-level architecture, but we use Salesforce as an integration hub with these two schools. So University A and B both had their own Salesforce instance that plugged into these noded networks on Hyperledger, and we were able to move that data that way. That's the really high-level example of it. But think about Trailhead. How many people have a Trailhead badge? Good. That's a sticker. You know what's not on that sticker? There's no metadata. And this is what it's going to, I think this is what it's going to turn out to be. So AWS Educate and a lot of our educational partners are already using this standard. It's called OBI, Open Badge Infrastructure. It's open, and it gives you all this metadata here, the structure to be able to use to say this pretty sticker equals these skills, okay? So now, remember back to my challenge coin. If I had that challenge coin and I was on this network, and I was this person over here at Deloitte, and I had to be reskilled. I had to have some more education. Usually, Deloitte's going to give me some money, and I'm going to go to a school and go get trained. With my Trailhead at Deloitte, they have their own Trailhead. We call it My Trailhead. They have it inside their company, and they plug it into a trust network just like this. All of this education becomes available to them in their walls. So we're able to deliver education right into these disrupted workforces, or be able to allow Deloitte to retrain and upskill their people a lot easier with access to all these networks and all of these university partners, including like Amazon. They have AWS Educate, can push education right into these workforces because the data is with the person. It's with them. So we call it the Trusted Learner Record and a Trusted Learner Network. And that's Phil Long. He's P1. I'm P2. I'm Phil 2. We worked together at UT, and we were on way too many emails together. So it was like, hey, Phil, and both of us would answer constantly. So we just numbered ourselves. And we got to go to the Department of Education and meet with DeVos and Jim Blue, the head of policy in our country, about this idea. And they were so taken by it. They convened a group of people. We had 130 people come to DC to a Department of Education meeting, which never happens. Nobody ever goes to those. Packed room like this to talk about blockchain. This is what came out of it. We started this thing called the Education Architecture Special Interest Group. Anybody who's interested in blockchain, please go to the Hyperledger Foundation and join this. It's free, but I would love to hear your voice in this discussion with us, especially if it's in education, because this is not something just for the States. This is a global thing. It's a knowledge economy, and it's global, so we should all have our voices in this. But it's going to help us create the policies and the governance models around shared data for this industry, and it's already kicked off. I'll leave you a couple things. Change is really hard. This is what I run into this every day. This is a book from the 1500s from Machiavelli called The Prince, where it was hard then. Look, it's still the same thing. It's never going to change. So don't ever get frustrated thinking, oh, my life sucks. This is so hard. It's been hard forever. It's going to continue to be hard. But we really have to think about why we should make this change. But leave you with this. This is Bill McRaven. You can't get the greatest by being timid. Something he instilled in me, and I hold it to this day. The guy is very motivational. Watch Make Your Bed if you haven't watched it yet. So look at that. 9:56.